Hello to Shepherd of the Lake and our network of family and friends. God's blessings to you this morning. Yesterday, given the forecast, I and Tom, our church council president, made the decision to cancel services for today, and also the other two churches here in Tellico Village, First Baptist and the Community Church, also made the decision that they out of caution would not have services. So no one here in Tellico Village is going to be at service this morning. It's not that bad out there. The forecasters seem to have overestimated. I came in at about 7:30 a.m. and at that point, even as early as it was then, the roads were just wet, but a little ice on the car, but none on the road. So seems the forecasters were overestimating, but still, it's better to be safe than sorry, as they say. I hope you're having a warm, cozy, safe morning at home. You may be wondering about our annual meeting, which was scheduled for today. We've decided to put that off for 2 weeks. Next week, we had some key people on council who were not going to be able to be present, and so we're putting it off 2 weeks. Don't worry, we will get the business of the church done in plenty of time. And thank you to all who have been working to make the annual report happen. You should have gotten that by email along with the budget, so you'll have plenty of time now to peruse that and call with any questions or come by and visit, speak with me or Sandy, or we can get an answer to any question you might have ahead of the approval of those things. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. Today is the third Sunday after Epiphany, so in lieu of having a full service, we're going to talk about the readings. Grab yourself a cup of coffee, put me on the TV or on your laptop or on your phone or on your iPad and just prop it up and enjoy. Our gospel for today is from Matthew, and it is about the calling of the first disciples. As you might recall, we talked a little bit about that last week. Last week, our reading had to do with sort of the preparation for the calling of the first disciples. It was this chain of witnesses from John the Baptist through Andrew and Peter. And we talked about how that wonderful chain of witnesses has led even to us having faith, the gift of faith, and being gathered together even here in 2026 in East Tennessee. And it had to do with people telling folks about Jesus and who Jesus was and who Jesus is, and what it meant, what he meant for them, and what the faith meant to them. And that wonderful chain of witnesses blesses even us now. And we become a part of the chain of witnesses, and that is our blessing, our responsibility to continue to tell people about who Jesus is. So this is kind of a continuation of that theme. But it begins in chapter 4 of Matthew. It says, "Now when Jesus had heard that John had been arrested, he withdrew to Galilee. He left Nazareth and made his home in Capernaum by the sea, in the territory of Zebulun and Naphtali, so that what had been spoken through the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled. Land of Zebulun, land of Naphtali, on the road by the sea, across the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, and for those who sat in the region and shadow of death, light has dawned." From that time, Jesus began to proclaim, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near." As he walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of people." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. As he went from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets, and he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Jesus went throughout all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and curing every disease and every sickness among the people. The gospel of the Lord. This is one of those gospels where things take place matters. It says that after Jesus heard that John was arrested, he withdrew to this place, Galilee of the Gentiles, Capernaum. And that was a place which for generations had been war-torn. It had been conquered and conquered by different peoples. And inasmuch, the Jewish community there found it hard to maintain their Jewish identity. You kind of think of Jerusalem as being the opposite. Jerusalem is the seat of the faith. That's where the temple is. That's where the priests are. Now, in Jesus' time, it had become corrupted, and so he needed to purify the temple, purify the faith. But Jerusalem was still the heart, the beating heart of the Jewish identity and faith. This Galilee of the Gentiles place is the opposite of that. It's a place where folks struggled to hold on to who they were. Even as far back as the prophet Isaiah, he was sending them comfort by saying, you all are living in great darkness, but God is going to send a light. And he was prophesying, promising the coming of the Messiah, even back then in the days of Isaiah. And so when we get to Matthew, Matthew interprets Jesus moving to this place as being the fulfillment of that promise made through the prophet Isaiah. He is the great light which is dawning on this people who for generations have struggled with the strife in their area and with their identity as God's people. It's obvious that when we're under strain and struggle and stress and lack, it's at those times we doubt who we are, and we doubt our relationships, even to God perhaps. Isaiah sought to comfort them by strengthening their understanding of who they were and who God was and what God was going to do. And Jesus is the fulfillment of that. God's blessing rests upon you because Jesus has come. Despite what has happened in the past, despite what's going on now, God's favor rests upon you. And so that's what that ties into, that meaning. After Jesus moves to this place that formerly had been in great darkness, he begins to call his first disciples and say, "Come and follow me away from their boats and their nets and their fathers, for they were fishers." We can read this on a couple of different levels. One is purely historical. This is the beginning of Jesus' ministry involving being a rabbi and having disciples who follow him around. Now, importantly, rabbis usually stayed in one place, and the disciples came to them. But in Jesus' case, he's on the move and he's calling disciples to follow him. So there's a difference there. His ministry is more active. It's less academic and more engaged in what's going on. He's going around preaching. He's calling people to repent, as our gospel says. And so he's on the move, and his disciples have to be on the move as well. The other way we can read this is as speaking to our discipleship. We are those most recent disciples called away from nets and boats in order to follow Jesus. How do we think about that? I think we have to think about it as our vocation is existing on different levels. If we're retired, perhaps we don't have a vocation in the strictest sense of the word, but we have had a vocation. We had something we did to make a living, and that was a huge part of our identity in the past. And maybe even we struggled when we let that go, when we were no longer an engineer or a truck driver or an artist, whatever we professed as our profession when we were actively working for a living. Maybe when we let that go, that was painful, and we had a sense, maybe like the people in Zebulun and Naphtali did, of who am I now that I'm not doing this? What does it mean to be me now? Those are struggles that many people very naturally go through. But if we're still working, as some of us here at Shepherd of the Lake are, we have that level of vocation where part of what I do is this job, this vocation. And when we read this gospel, one of the ways we can read it is that we all have a vocation, and we shouldn't downgrade or downplay that vocation. That vocation is a blessing. Our earthly vocation is a blessing from God. Luther talked a lot about that because, as you know, he was fond of the concept of what we call now the priesthood of all believers. He was one that said, a person who is honestly and righteously making shoes for a living is doing as good a work as a bishop. and sometimes better. Luther, as you know, had a sense of humor. But he was one to point out the holiness of everyone's vocation. A Christian can be a baker and a shoemaker and an engineer and be a Christian within those things. Not everybody is supposed to quit their job and become a missionary to Ethiopia or to Kenya or to anywhere else in the world. If everybody did that, it would be a huge mess. Some people are called to live their vocations as a Christian, and that is how they are called to witness. And the world needs more of that. The world needs people who understand their vocation, whatever it is, as a holy vocation. And I would say that even retirement and living the retired lifestyle is and can be a holy vocation. I don't see a lot of idleness here at Shepherd of the Lake or idleness here at Tellico. I see a lot of people engaged in a lot of different things. And one of the ways we can think about that is, we have our lives that are things that we do. And then we have Jesus calling to us saying, don't forget this other aspect of what it means to be you. And that other aspect is your baptized identity, your holy vocation as a disciple of Christ. You might be a world champion pickleball player. You might be engaged in the Lions Club. They do good work. You might be engaged in a million things. But part of what this gospel speaks to is remembering who we are on the level of being a baptized Christian and a disciple of Christ. Because God, through Christ, in some way has called all of us to follow him. That may be being a missionary to Ethiopia, and it might be being who you are right here in Tellico Village right now, and living out your baptized identity by being a witness to Christ in the ways that you're plugged in and the ways that you're engaged in the community. And that is every bit as valid, every bit as holy a vocation. And I think when we honor that and when we understand that, it helps prevent that meaninglessness that can sometimes creep into our daily lives. It helps to prevent that sense of, well, what does this mean anyway? Who am I anyway? What's this all about? Well, Jesus is the answer to that, and our discipleship to him. There are people here in Tellico Village that need to know who Jesus is, and not just intellectually, but they need to see it lived out, and so that's our calling. Well, I could say some more, but I think that is where we'll stop it today. God's blessings to you. If you have any questions or concerns, please do call the church office or my cell phone, 913-229-2129. Hope that all is well at your home. And please do be in touch with us if you have any concerns. If you have any problems that went on with the weather, please let us know. If you need to get somewhere, we could probably arrange that. Like I said, I don't think we're going to have much problem with that. But if that happens to happen, please do let us know. God's blessings, and we'll see you either on Wednesday for educational hour, or we will see you on Sunday for worship.